This is the Save My Marriage Starter Program, and this section is about communication. Communication is your greatest tool in saving a marriage, and it's also the place where a marriage can really get undone. Communicating during conflict is a very difficult thing to do in terms of doing it well and having the skills to do that well. And that's because there's a lot of bad habits that come with communication, especially in a long-term relationship where there are difficulties. An example is just yesterday, I was speaking to one of my clients who's experiencing a breakdown in their marriage, and the goal that we made in that call was that he would focus on not arguing. So that was the one thing that he was going to do. He was not going to argue with his wife. Well, a couple of hours later, he argued with his wife. He really didn't want to argue with her, but in the moment when he was speaking with her, he was not able to control himself. He could not make that decision even though he wanted to. What had happened was that when he spoke to her, she was critical of him, and he was not able to cope with that criticism. And his habitual way of behaving in the face of that is to fight back. So as much as he was hearing this voice saying, I told Naomi I wouldn't argue, he found himself arguing and behaving quite badly. So the complexity that goes on in these conflicts is quite profound, because for him what's happened is that he has a very damaged sense of self, which unfortunately comes, from early in his life. And he has never really seen that or had the opportunity to heal that. And now what he's discovering is that in his marriage, he has been unconsciously being very negative and, I guess, emotionally aggressive, because he's guarding that wound. He's trying to protect a very vulnerable part in him. And unless you're able to be aware of what you're doing, you can end up communicating in ways that create exactly the results you don't want. So in his case, he's really wanting his wife to love and appreciate him, and yet over and over again, the way he communicates with her is very unpleasant. So he's not receiving the kind of appreciation that he's yearning for. So that's an example of why communication skills are difficult to learn, because there's always attached to those bad patterns of communication a lot of material within yourself that's generating those negative patterns of communication. But to begin with, what you can do is you can observe the way that you're communicating and look at the results that you're getting. When you communicate, are you communicating in such a way that it is inviting to your spouse to take on board what you have to say? Are you making it, are you effective in communicating concerns or issues in a way that allows your spouse to understand your points of view and be comfortable hearing what you have to say?